Okay, so I'm Mariona Bustamante and I work at PS Global. I'm contracted as a staff scientist. So part of my job is helping several projects on preparing samples, biological samples, and also designing studies for omic analysis. So if you have any questions about this presentation, you can contact me by email. You will find the email at the end of the slides. Okay. Okay, so I was thinking, well, Maribel, I think we have like two sessions. The first one that is about sample collection and the second one that is related to labeling of the samples and material. So we can try to keep like this, but maybe let's see the timings and we will see how we present everything, okay? And I think that it will be best if you have a question to just ask it, okay? Instead of waiting until the end, because I think it will be more useful. Okay, so this is what I'm going to present. I'm going to present a little bit the different protocols for sample collection. So this means the collection, the processing, the metadata we are collecting, and how to store the samples. Then I will talk about the shipments of the samples, the IDs and labels, the material and blanks that are needed for the labs, and finally, some slides on COVID-19 biosafety. So, okay, in this athlete visit, we are collecting 4 different types of samples. We are collecting stools and urine samples, and these samples are collected at home by the adolescents. And during the visit, we are collecting hair and blood. You can find the protocols explaining how to collect all these samples on the Google Drive. Here you have the link, and I think you already know where all these files are. And you will find a folder for each biological sample. And inside the folder, you will find different documents. There is a document called SOP, version 1, because it's the first version before starting the visit, with a date. And if we change something in this version 1, we will change the date, okay? If we start the visit and we change something, we will create version 2, okay? But since now we have not started the visit, or not all the cohorts have started the visit, we are still working with version 1. So in this file that is called SOP, you have the whole protocol for sample collection. Then, if the samples have to be collected by the adolescents, we have a second file that is called instructions, which is like a summary of the SOP, of the protocol, with only the important information that is needed for the adolescent to collect the samples. But for instance, the material is not listed, or other details that are specific for the processing, etc., are not included. And for some of the samples, for instance, for urine and hair, there's a video that I will comment it later. And then we have 2 files that are called AMPRO, which contain a questionnaire related to the collection of the data or the processing of the data. So there we are going to record information about the day, the hour when we are collecting the sample, the temperature, the timings, the number of aliquots, etc. Okay. Usually the collection file is filled by the adolescent or the nurse or the person who collects the samples. The processing is a form that has to be filled by the person that is in the lab, okay, and processes the samples. And then there is a file that is called box, that is this one, that it's an Excel file, which contains a template for the different boxes we are going to create to store the samples. And I think it's really important to have this template to then be able to send the samples to the other labs and make sure that they know which sample is located in each position of the box. And finally, there is a document that is called README file that it's a summary, contains a summary of the different versions of the protocol. If you open this file, you will see something like this. So you will see version 1, it was created on this date, and it's the first version we created, okay? Then we have a second version 1 with a different date, which has minor changes, and then you have a summary of the changes of what we have changed from the first version. And we have created this file because we think that it can be useful for you to know which are the differences between versions, because then you don't need to read the whole protocol again. Maybe you can focus on the things that are different, okay? And I think it's really important that before starting the visit, you go to the drive and you check that you are using the last version that is in the drive. Because sometimes we start changing things because the lab tells us, let's change the temperature or whatever. And sometimes it's difficult to communicate to everybody. So I think it's good if you can do it the other way. So before starting, check that you have the last version, okay? Okay, so let's start sample by sample. And as I said, if you have questions, stop me and we can discuss it. So the urine samples, we are going to collect 12 urine samples, and these samples will be collected by the adolescent at home during 6 consecutive days. So this will be from day 1 to day 6 of the visit, okay? And for each day, we want to collect 2 samples, one during the morning, let's say the first one in the morning, and the second sample is the one before the bedtime. Okay, so in total, this will be 12 samples. Once collected, these samples will be stored at home at -20, so in the freezer, more or less -20. And when they arrive to the cohort, they will be stored at -20 or -80. We will discuss it later. And okay, so the samples have to be transported, moved from home to the cohort. And for this, we have proposed you to use a callback, okay? And yeah, and it's important to ensure that this callback keeps the samples frozen, okay? And okay, and finally, the samples or part of these urine samples will be sent to these 2 labs, Imperial College and NIPH in Norway for the different measurements. This is the overall summary of the urine collection. And here we have the detailed process. And I'm going just to highlight the most important points. As said, the collection will be done by the adolescents, and we have decided to use these kits for urine collection, which contains 2 devices. One is a recipient, similar to the one used previously in Helix. And what we want is that the child collects the urine inside this recipient, the big one, and then they have to close the recipient very well and insert the tube in it, and you will see that the urine is absorbed from the big recipient to the tube through the vacuum system, okay? There is a video on the Google Drive where you can see how this works. In principle, at least in Sabadell, all the adolescents have understood this very well, and there's no problem to use this system, okay? But, well, maybe it's important to explain them very well or circulate a video. I don't know. You can decide how to explain this to the adolescents, okay? So finally, the adolescents will just froze the tubes in the air freezer, okay? And for this, we have given them a Tupperware, a box, okay? So instead of putting the tubes in the freezer directly, we recommend to put them in a Tupperware. Okay, this is the collection, and now the transport. To transport the samples, well, we have to be sure that the samples arrive to the cohort are still frozen, okay? So we propose to use this callback with 2 ice packs, and these ice packs will be given to the child or maybe the field worker. I don't know, it depends on how you have organized the visit, or so maybe the field worker will bring them to the home. I don't know exactly, but we need 2 ice packs frozen at -20. So when the samples are transported, the adolescent will take the callback, put one of these ice packs inside it. Then we will put the box with the urines, and then the second ice pack, okay? And the samples will be transported to the visit. Once the samples arrive to the visit, please check they are still frozen. If this is not the case, maybe we have to think how to do this in a different way. But at least we have not had any problem with the system here in sorry, in Sabadell. So yeah, let's do like this. If there's any problem, let us know. Okay. Okay, so then the samples arrive to the cohort, and you can decide if you want to process them immediately or if you want to accumulate them in the freezer for several days. And let's say you just take 1 day per week, and during that day you aliquot of all the samples. Okay, this is up to you. But it's really important that when you start to aliquot the samples, the samples are at room temperature. Okay, so you will need some time to unfreeze the samples. Okay, and this takes quite a long. Maybe you will need a whole overnight or a whole morning to have the samples at room temperature. Okay, so from the 12 urines, we are going to collect 6 aliquots of each one of the morning samples. So we will have sorry, I'm not sure if I have explained it well. So we will have in total 6 aliquots representing the morning urine. So 1 aliquot for each day. Okay, and these aliquots will be of 1.8 mLs, and they will be labeled with a blue cap insert in the tube to identify them. We will also keep the same number of aliquots for the bedtime urines, and this means 1 aliquot for each day. Okay, and finally we will create 9 pools, including the 12 urines, and these pools, which will be exactly the same, so these are replicates of the same pool, will be stored in these cryotubes without any insert. So with the different colors, we will be able to track which type of sample we have. And here you have the process to create this pool, that is just putting part of a specific volume of each one of the 12 urines in a big container, vortex it very well, mix it very well, and then create the pool. Is there any question on this part? I think this is...
Mariana, I have a question from Norway, Amrit. I just want to know these recipient tubes and the other tubes, what kind of plastic, and if they contain any additive added to them?
Which ones? These ones to make the pool, or the ones for the collection?
No, the first one for the collection. These ones.
These ones.
Yeah.
These ones are going to be bought centrally at ES Global. Okay, and I think we double checked with the lab, and they are made of PP polypropylene. I think that it's one of the less problematic plastics.
Yeah, polypropylene works very fine, but there is, in some of the Vacutainer tubes, they always add some kind of additive like boric acid or...
They do not have any additive.
No, perfect,
No.
Perfect. Then.
No.
Okay.
No, we double check it. And regarding this other recipient, the one that is needed to prepare the pool, this is going to be bought by each one of the cohorts. So each cohort will use a different one, but you have to keep some of them for the blanks.
Yeah,
so if
I think
has any problem, we can track it.
Yeah, I think the cry tubes are also quite okay with the plastic, but everybody has to check it. It would be perfect if they can have some blanks or Yeah,
the cryotubes will also be bought centrally at ES Global. But again, you will need to keep some blanks. I have a specific slide talking about the blanks, which are the blanks we need for each sample and each lab.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you for saying it, because I think it's one of the most important points to track the let's say the background in each of the different recipients that we are using.
Yes.
Okay, so if there are no more questions about the urine collection and processing, we move to the metadata we are recording, obtaining, okay? So the metadata, I mean just information related to the urine samples, okay? And this yes, sure.
Can I just ask you to send me the presentation because the person from the lab is not here?
Okay. Yeah, the presentation is going to be on Google Drive, but I can send it also.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so regarding the metadata, we have split this information in two files. One is called instructions, that is the file that is given to the adolescent. And there, in that file, we have included some questions related to the urine collection, which has to be filled by the adolescent. That are these questions here. So is the type of question is the day when the sample is collected, the hour, if there's any problem, etc. And then in the same document, we have a questionnaire about the transport. So at which hour the sample left home, when the sample arrived at the cohort, if it was stored at -20, etc. Okay, and this part is going to be filled by the field worker, the person who received the samples. But we have put this in the same document because we think that the logistics will, if we put in this way, it will be easier for the logistics because the person who collects the urines also will collect the metadata, this other information prepared by the child. And because of this, they are in the same document. But if you organize the visit in a different way and you prefer to have this in different documents, just take part of the questionnaire and put it where you want, in another file or as you prefer, okay? The only important thing about the metadata is that all the questions are included, but you can split it as you prefer, okay? Apart from this file called instructions, which contains part of the metadata, we have a second file that is called processing, okay? And here we have also some questions which have to be filled by the lab person or the field worker. And these questions relate to the processing of the samples and the timings of storage. So, for instance, they have to tick if all the liquids have been created or if there has been any deviation from the protocol, okay? Okay, so this is related to the metadata. The idea, or you also can decide how to do this, but at least in INMA, what we are doing is that all this metadata, all these forms or questionnaires are in paper. So the person who has to fill it, fills it in a paper, and then somebody transfers all the information that is in paper into the web application that is created to record all the information of the athlete visit, not only the metadata related to the biological samples, but also the clinical data or other kind of information. I don't know if Maribel is here or she left.
Yes,
Maribel?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that I don't know which is the status of the web application. I just know that the metadata related to biological samples will be transferred there. I don't know if there's something else that you want to add.
Maybe Serena can answer this question much better than me.
Yeah. The application is well, the software is being developed, and I think that the diary is still missing. So this part is already in the software, and it's being tested in INMA. And we are the developers are getting feedbacks from Jose and Silvia. So it's ongoing, but yeah, it's included, and it should be ready by January. If it's not at the beginning of the visit, the whole thing, it will be, the adolescent questionnaire will be, and the other parts maybe will be a little bit delayed, but once ready, everything can be imputed in this software.
Yeah, so I think that it's best to use a paper for recording the information and then transferring to the web application, especially if it's not clear if it will be ready from the beginning.
Yeah, I agree that, well, I think that I'm not sure if this is the case for all the cohorts, but for example, in INMA, they might much, they like better to fill the all this information in paper, keep them in records, and then introduce them into the software. So I don't know if it's the case also in the other cohorts, or if they prefer to enter the data directly into the software. But at the beginning, it could be that you will have to use paper in any case. I think that it's good to have a double, I don't know, to have two, I don't know.
Yeah, I also would prefer to work with paper, especially in the lab, that it's easier.
Probably faster, yeah. Yeah.
Just one question, Serena, I'm not sure, but is the web application going to be similar to the questionnaires in the format? I mean,
it's the same.
Okay,
yeah.
I think it will be easy. If the format is the same, it will be easy to transfer the information from the paper to the web application, because it will be like a replicate and faster. No, visually it will.
You mean like the order of the questions and everything?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Like if it's like the tables, for instance, here the urine diary, it's like a table. So if the format is more or less the same format in the web application, this is going to be quite similar visually. And
yeah.
it might be
let me check, because I didn't check it myself. But Silvia did. So I don't know if, no sé si Silvia estás aquí.
Sí, buenos días.
Hola. Sí, no sé, tú que has chequeado el cuestionario, sé que, bueno, que había pequeños detalles que hay que refinar, pero en general el cuestionario es similar al de papel, ¿no? O sea, te encuentras las preguntas y es fácil de rellenar, ¿no?
Sí, pero no, el diario de monitorización no está en el cuestionario online, con lo cual lo que dice Mariona de rellenar el tema de las orinas sigue siendo vigente un papel, el diario de la semana.
Todavía. No está todavía, Silvia. Estará, así que es solamente porque están desarrollándolo. Sí, sí, no, estará al final.
Vale. Pero yo también opino que no va a ser muy práctico para los niños tener que apuntar cada día la hora en la que después de orinar en el aplicativo. Es mejor nosotros les decimos, como hay una hoja, entonces se lo cuelgan en la nevera. Espera un momento que te lo enseño. Un segundo.
No, espera, Silvia.
Es que no lo veo, Silvia.
No, espera. El tema es esto, que no, el aplicativo será un aplicativo para los fieldworkers, para el diario, pero los niños seguirán teniendo el papel. No le vamos a pedir que rellenen un diario en un aplicativo, ¿ok? O sea, que ellos lo rellenan.
Aquí tú les preguntas la hora en la que lo recogen y la hora en que la congelan, que es lo mismo que está diciendo Mariona.
Sí, pero lo vas a pedir.
Esto se tiene que pasar después a un software, a una base de datos.
Exacto, sí, exacto. Que será lo mismo, o sea, el mismo aplicativo que tiene el cuestionario tendrá también todas estas partes.
Pero que no lo rellenará el niño lo rellenará en papel, ¿no?
Yes.
Sí, okay. Sorry, I will translate for the
other.
Thank you.
So we have, yeah, so the nurses from Sabadell confirmed that the interface, the software that they are developing, the user interface is similar to the paper version of the questionnaire and of these of all the documents that we are producing, like that you are filling in paper. And then you can easily transfer the information to the software. And they were wondering if the kids will fill in this diary in the software directly. And no, the answer is no. The diary will be a paper version for the kit to be filled in, and then the field workers will have to enter the information into the software. I don't know if this was clear, or maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah. If not, I also wanted to add 2 things. One is that each one of these forms has to be labeled, and we have decided to label them with the subject ID. That is the same of the helix ID, okay? And I will talk about the labels later. And the second thing is that usually for all the questionnaires, we ask who is the person who has collected the samples or processed the samples and is filling this document. So we want to have the name in order to check if something is strange or whatever, to be able to track back and talk to this person. So please, you can include your name or the initials of the name or something that can identify the person who has collected the samples or processed the samples. Okay, so this relates to the metadata. And the last step is the storage of the samples. So the urine samples have to be stored at -20, the individual voids, so the morning and night samples. And the pools have to be stored at -80. We decided to do this because we didn't have enough space at -80 to put all the samples there. But if you have enough space at -80, you can store all the samples or all the liquids, the pool and individual voids at -80, okay? But not at -20. So everything at -80 or at least the pools. And regarding the storage of the samples, so we will have 5 different boxes, okay? There will be 1 box for the morning samples, and all the 6 morning samples coming from the same subject will be stored consecutively, okay? So you can see them here in this template in red, and then you will, these samples, for instance, will be subject 1, day 1, day 2, until day 6, and then we will have subject 2, day 1, until day 6. Okay, this is for the morning samples. We will have a second box, a similar second box for the night bedtime samples. Okay, and then we'll have 3 boxes for the pools. There will be 1 box containing the aliquots, the pool aliquots from 1 to 6. Okay, and again they will be stored consecutively, and this box will be stored at the cohort. Okay, and still we don't know what we will do with these samples, and we are just for the moment being stored. And then aliquot 7 and aliquot 8 of the pool will be stored in another box, in a different box, again consecutively, and this box will be sent to one of the labs that I will tell later. And finally, the last aliquot, that is aliquot 9, will be stored independently in a different box, and it will be sent to another lab. So we will split the samples, the pool samples, in different boxes depending on the lab where they have to be sent. And again, very important to fill this template, okay? That you have the template on the Google Drive.
Mariana? Just,
yes.
Hi, just a clarification. So the pooled samples are the morning urines from day 1 to 6, or is it both morning, evening? Pooled samples.
Yeah, sorry. The pool samples. But wait, I don't know. Here, the pool samples. We are going to create 9 pool samples, and each pool will have 12 urines. So morning and night of the 6 consecutive days.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so it will be a weekly pool.
Right. Okay, I see. So that's yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
And the morning and bedtime samples, okay, that we are going to keep 6 aliquots for the morning and 6 for the bedtime. They are individual voids, so they are not replicates. This means that it's just a small fraction of the urine collected in day 1 morning, fraction of the urine collected in day 2 morning. They are not pooled. Okay? I say aliquots, but indeed they are different. Okay.
Yeah.
And we are keeping them completely separately, because if somebody wants to check the variability of some chemicals during the different days, morning, night, we will be able to go to the samples and answer the question.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, one more question, that we are going to take only 1.8 milliliter of the sample from morning, each morning, not more than that. The rest will be discarded, the rest of the urine.
If you can keep more than one, it will be very good. But at least it was very difficult for us to have the space to keep all the samples. And we decided to keep just one aliquot per void.
Okay.
But Maribel, I guess that it's good if the cohorts can keep more than one aliquot.
Yeah, of course. If you have a space in the freezers, that's always nice to keep more urine, because you have the urine. That's the I think one of the best biological samples, and also because we have realized now that we are participating in some of these Green Deal new projects, and for some targeted approaches they are asking us like 5 milliliters of urine, and this is impossible. For cores, the space of the biobank it's the main limitation. So instead of you can store more aliquots, at least for athletes. We are proposing one aliquot for each morning and for each evening urine sample, but you can keep always the 10 milliliters tube if you want, if you have space, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll try. Or we can sell all the samples from cores to Norway and store.
Yeah, of course. It's cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if there are no more questions about the urine samples, I will move to the stools. Yeah. Okay. So the stool samples, we are going to collect just one sample in a tube that is called Thymo. Okay. And this tube has a reagent that stabilizes the bacteria, and also it lysates the viruses. So this is good for the COVID. So this means that the stool sample collected in this tube will not be infectious anymore. Okay, but again, we have to be careful in any case. Okay, so this sample will be collected by the adolescent at home, and we recommend to collect the sample on day 6. But if you think or the adolescent tends to be constipated, this adolescent can collect the sample on day 5 or 4 or whatever we want. Okay. Yeah, the sample will be stored at -20 in the freezer, and this has been changed from previous protocols. Okay, the previous version of the protocol set at room temperature, I think, but we have decided that it could be better to store it in the freezer, especially in countries such as Greece or Spain, that the summers are quite hot and room temperature might be too much maybe. And then when the sample arrives to the cohort, it will be stored at -18. And yeah, and again, the transport, the shipment of the sample from home to the cohort, it will be done in this cold bag together with the urine. So in the same cold bag, we will put the tupper, the box with the urines, plus the tube with the stool sample. Okay, and this sample will be sent to this lab in UK. Okay, and here you have the protocol for the collection of the sample, that this will be done at home by the adolescent. And okay, the first part is to prepare what you can see here in the image. So we will ask the adolescents to put a bag on the toilet and put a paper on it and defecate on the paper. We thought that this would be maybe the easiest way to collect the sample. If you can imagine, or you have other protocols, you can change it, doesn't matter. Okay, but maybe the only thing that would be good to do it in a similar way is to use the same paper, okay? Because I guess that part of the paper can be taken with the spoon that is in the tube, and maybe this could introduce differences between one study to another. But this system of the back can be another one. You can decide. Okay. So once we have the stools on the paper, we will ask the child to wear to put on some gloves and open the tube. And this tube, the Thymo tube, contains a spoon, and take part of the stools with this spoon. How much? We would like a whole spoon, okay? But a little less is fine, okay? Then this spoon will, the stools collected with the spoon will be introduced in the tube, okay? And the tube has to be mixed. So the stools have to be mixed with the reagent that is in the tube. But we don't need to shake the tube, okay? And then the adolescent has to close the tube and freeze the sample at -20 at their home, and label the tube, etc. Okay, unless it's pre-labeled by you. You can decide, but we need the tube with a label. Okay, and finally, we will ask them to discard the bag and the rest of the stools, wash their hands, and for the transport, as I said, this stool sample will be transported together with the urines. Okay, and once the sample arrives to the cohort, we will just put the sample at -80. We do not need to process the tube at all, okay? Very important to check that the sample, when it arrives to the cohort, is not unfrozen, okay? It has to be still frozen. If this is not the case, we should check the protocol for the transport from home to the cohort, okay? Okay, and again, here we are going to collect several metadata in paper, and then this data will be transferred to the web application or the software. And the file that contains the metadata or the questions is called instructions, and it has several sections. There is a section about the stool collection, okay, that will be filled by the adolescent, that it's here, so it's the time when he or she collected the sample, etc. There's also a stool chart, that is this image here, where we ask for the type of stools of the child during the day of the collection, and also usually during the last year. We have a section about stools transport that will be filled by the field worker that collects the sample at the cohort, and also a section about the stools storage, that it's the time when we finally store the sample at -80. And with all this information, we can track the timing. So how long it takes to send the samples from the home to the cohort, how long it takes the storage in the cohort from -20 to -80, etc. And this kind of information we think might be useful for controlling potential batch, okay? And also for the stool, for the metagenomics, the analysis that we are going to do in the stools, it's very important to have information about diet, drugs, etc. Okay, and I think if I am right, Maribel, all this information has moved from these files, from the metadata of stools of biological samples, to the main questionnaires of the visit. No sé si
I'm not
Maribel?
sure, Mariona. Yes, I'm here. I'm hear you. The question
okay, sorry. I cannot see anybody.
Yeah, so the questions on the left, you mean?
No, I mean that for the metagenomics, it's very important to have information on drugs, diet, etc. And I think at the beginning we had this information here together with the other metadata, but I think finally it was decided to move this into the main questionnaires. I don't know, when you ask about asthma, I think there are also some questions related to drugs or diet or...
Yeah, I think that we move into the questionnaire, but we can check, Mariona, to be sure that we are asking the questions you need. Okay.
Yeah, we can double check with the lab, with Leslie. But I think we already did, but let's double check, okay? But yeah, just to let you know that there is important information that we will use to control for this.
Mariona, question. Instead of the plastic bag, could you use, you know, in the hospital we use like these bed pans, what you can put on top of the toilet. It's like this, you know, they are.
I don't know what it is, but I think you can change.
It's like a thick paper-based bedpan, but you put just on top of the toilet, so everything what you do goes in there, and then you could put the toilet paper in there, so they can tip it in, and then it can be recycled in the recycling bin.
Yeah, I think there's no problem if you change the way how to collect the stools. I mean, to get the stools on the paper surface. So I think it's fine what you are proposing.
Okay.
Yeah, we just proposed this because we found this on internet. But yeah, and we are, Sylvia, I guess we are, en català, Sílvia, els nens els estem dient que ho facin així, oi?
Sí, sí, sí.
Que posin la bossa i tot el tinglado. Sí. Us han dit alguna cosa?
No, la veritat és que, a veure, n'hi ha alguns que no ho fan,
Vale, però no han dit res.
Llavors perdem el tub, però la veritat és que els que ho fan no ens han comentat que els hi sigui dificultós.
Vale. No, I was checking that in Sabadell, we are using this system of the bag, okay? And it seems it works, but you can use the system you prefer. It's fine. Okay, so finally, the storage of the stool samples. As I said, these samples have to be stored at -80 in the cohorts, and we will have just one box with the samples. Well, not just one box, but I mean, since we are collecting just one sample per child, the samples will be stored consecutively, and we will have one box. When this box is completely full, we will change to another one, etc. So if you have 200 children in your study, I think you will have something as, I know these boxes are smaller. I don't know, maybe you will have 5 boxes, okay? Note that the tube, okay, the tube is like this. It's not a cryo tube, so you will need bigger boxes. The reference of the ones we are using is in the protocol, okay? And usually these boxes allow, like, you can put in there maybe 40 samples, not 81, okay? So you will have like maybe 5 boxes in total, and they take some space in the freezer. Okay, so if it's fine, we can move to the hair samples. Okay, so for the hair, we are going to collect just one sample at the visit, and this will be done by the nurse or field worker. And yeah, and the sample will be stored at room temperature in the cohort. And right now, there are no plans to use this sample. The idea, or what we would like to do, is to measure cortisol or maybe other chemicals in the hair samples, but there's no budget yet.
Yeah, okay. Mariona, sorry, just to mention that the hair collection is optional, okay?
Okay.
So the packagings, for example, were also optional. All courts have agreed to include packagings, which is really nice. But hair collection, it's up to them. I don't know, maybe we can have some feedback from courts if you are planning to collect it or not, to have an idea.
I have a comment on this as well. It's also optional because it could be a deal breaker with the participants, and we really don't want this to happen, to lose the participant because of hair collection. So even if you choose as a cohort to collect it, please feel comfortable to drop it in the case that the adolescent is not willing to collect hair and can decide not to participate to the visit because of this.
I think I agree with Serena. I think we can propose it to all the participants, and if they want, it's fine. If they don't want, we can move forward with the protocol. What do you think?
It's perfect.
Yeah, that's nice. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Mariana. Yeah, I know there were discussions about the hair collection, but so we decided now to go forward with it.
Good.
It was optional for the cohorts or something. That was discussed as I remember.
Yeah.
Another practical, maybe a little bit strange, but what we were talking about for the stool sample, when you go to the toilet, the kids need to wipe themselves, of course, after they go to the toilet. And where do they throw that paper? I mean, is that, and you want to avoid them, throwing that paper on top of the stool sample and so on. So I don't know, is it described in the protocol that, that you put a bin with a plastic next to the toilet and put the paper there, after you wipe yourself? Do you understand?
No, I'm not following it.
No, okay. So after you go, after you have been to the toilet, you need to use paper to wipe yourself afterwards, right?
Yeah.
And you do that right after you go to the toilet. So, so that would be a reaction. You have to wipe yourself behind after you go to the toilet. So, but you want that stool sample, to be free from whatever paper you use to wipe yourself, to clean yourself afterwards, right?
Yes, I think the only paper we want is the paper that we put below just to collect the sample, because I think we decided not to bin on the plastic, because maybe this might introduce some problem, or I don't remember why. Maybe if we want to measure chemicals or something in the samples, but I'm not sure. So I understand that the only paper we want is this one, the one for collecting the stools, but nothing else.
But what is it? What Christine is asking is if in the protocol is described where to throw the paper. Okay, so maybe we can add, that we need a bin on the side, because maybe it could be the same bin where everything will be thrown afterward. Bin with a plastic bag that will be, sorry, I have my son here that needs to go to the doctor afterward. I think that we can add this, that
it was just a practice.
And the same plastic bag will be afterward used to throw everything.
It can be that.
That was just a practical thing that we.
I think that we can add this to the protocol. Shh. Yeah, my son just realized what we are talking about. And he said, "Woo!"
I mean, els ets pot fer el bidet, si no hi ha problema, ¿vale? Com que no tothom té bidet, per això vam fer aquest invent de la bossa de plàstic. I'm answering a question for Sylvia.
Can I just say, I mean, this poo, what is on the picture is very, very, very unrealistically small, So obviously, there will be far more. So I doubt that people would like to discard it into their bin, really.
Maybe the paper has to be bigger. Yeah, no, that's true. If you want to change the photo or the process, I think it's fine. What's really important is this part that they collect a whole spoon of stools, if possible, and mix it very well with the liquid that is inside the tube.
Yeah, okay.
I think the other things can be modified. I mean, it's just the logistics how to do this. No? Okay, so coming back to the hair sample, I'm going to explain how to collect it for those cohorts that are going to collect it. So we recommend to cut the hair closely to the scalp from the posterior vortex area of the head. You can see it here, okay? And we need 50 milligrams of hair. That this is something as 1 centimeter square, okay? But we recommend not cutting 1 centimeter square, but like making a line, like in this image, okay? Because we think that this is less invasive, or according to the experience by Sylvia and Nuria from INMA, they have seen that the mother is better if the hair is cut like in a line, because then it's less, no, you don't see it. If you cut like 1 centimeter square, it's like a hole, and it's more annoying. Okay. Okay, and if the child or the adolescent has short hair, you can cut from different places. Okay, so you can cut a little bit from here, a little bit from there, more or less from the same area, but you can divide it in different places.
I have a comment on this. Just keep in mind that when we analyze the hair, we use the last 3 centimeters, I mean, the first 3 centimeters that are from the scalp. So starting from the roots, we use only these 3 centimeters or less if the hair are shorter, okay? So obviously, you need a certain amount of hair to make the analysis. So just for you to understand that if the hair is short, maybe we need a little bit more of hair to reach the amount. If it's shorter than 3 centimeters, okay?
Yeah.
When Mariana said 1 square centimeters, it's for long hair that are above the 3 centimeters, I think, length. Then if it's shorter, maybe you have to go a little bit, to get a little bit more. If, I understand that this is a little bit complex because the shorter, the more obvious is the patch. Yeah. So just for you to keep in mind.
And we recommend you to use this hair comb here. You can see in the image, because with this one, it's easy to move the hair, take it, and cut. Or this is according to the experience by Sylvia and Nuria. And yeah, once you have the hair sample, you have to put it in paper, okay? And yeah, so make like this pack, okay, here. And we are doing this for 2 things. One is to avoid static electricity, okay? And the other thing is because we want to identify where is the root, because as Serena said, we are going to use the 3 first centimeters from the root, and we need to know, if the root, sorry, it's here or here, okay? And so we recommend you to write a letter like care or something like this to indicate where is the root, okay? So here in this image, you can see one system to pack the hair, and here you can see another system, okay? You can use the one you want, but very important to indicate where is the root. And
one comment, Mariana.
Yeah.
Obviously, when the hair is short, you cannot really indicate where the root is. But as I said, the importance of indicating where is the root is when they are shorter than 3 centimeters, because then we will cut them. Starting from the root, we will count 3 centimeters and the hair will be cut at that point. But if the hair are really short and they do not reach this length, then I think that is not so important to indicate the root. I know that it maybe in the future could be like a problem, no? Saying, okay, now how we do indicate the root of this short hair? But in case of really short hair, it's not needed, because everything will be used for the.
Yeah, that's right. If it's like 1 centimeter, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, but the paper should be used in any case, because otherwise they stick to the plastic bag. So it's better if you put them like in a small, if they are really short, you put them maybe in a small folder, envelope, sorry, in a small envelope, paper envelope, and then in the bag. So you avoid them sticking around on the bag.
Yeah. Right. And the last thing, you will find a video on Google Drive explaining how to do all this, but maybe you have to take into account or see that in the video, the person is cutting 1 square centimeter of hair, and we do not recommend this. We recommend like this straight line, okay? instead of a patch. It's the only difference, but for the rest, you can look at the video and have an idea of how it goes. Okay, then we are also collecting metadata, which, and this is in this document called name call. And this metadata is filled by the nurse or the person who cuts the hair together with the adolescent, because we are collecting information about the hour where we collect the sample, etc., but also information about the treatments of the hair, if the hair has been dyed or other treatments. And regarding the storage, as I said, the sample will be stored at room temperature, and since we are collecting just one sample per child or per adolescent, we are going to store them consecutively. And yeah, and these boxes are different from the boxes we are using for cryotubes. They are like just big boxes without separators, and we just put the bags in there. Okay, so you can use any system that you think is useful for you. And that's all about the hair. Are there questions? No? Okay, so let's move to the blood samples.
Yeah, I just wanted, for course that maybe are thinking to include it or not. So I'm not an expert on hair, but hair can be used to measure cortisol, and it's a really nice measure of chronic exposure, I think. And also for example, for mercury in Sabadell, we have high levels because we eat a lot of fish, and this is one of the matrices we use to measure mercury. So it's, and I think, well, and are some new labs analyzing a long set of pesticides also in hair, because for 1 centimeter of hair, you have exposure of 1 month, and they are quite stable for pesticides. For example, this the ones that we are measuring in urine, and Amrit maybe will know more about that, but the variability, it's much lower in hair samples. So we think that it's worth collecting this sample, because it's not really, well, for the adolescents maybe yes, but it's easy to collect and store, and well, and it can add some really nice measures in the future. Just to
yeah, I just wanted to say that at least for the samples we are collecting in other projects, when we measure cortisol, we are not measuring only cortisol, but also some metabolites coming from cortisol, but we do not have any leftover for other measurements. So I think it's very good idea to collect the hair samples, but then you will not be able to do everything. Cortisol plus chemicals plus whatever, because you need like all the hair we are collecting for one of these measurements.
Mm-hmm. And one more question: if you want to collect hair, what about if they have used shampoo or something? Is there any questionnaire? Maybe the metadata will come regarding that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we ask about if the hair has been dyed different colors, and also if they have treated the hair with other products, but we do not ask specifically for which products. Like I don't know how they are called, but keratin or things like this. But we prepare these questions with the lab that is measuring cortisol, and they think that it's enough. But I'm not sure for other analysis. If you want to measure persistent pollutants, pesticides, or other things, or plasticides or things like this, I don't know if we should add more questions.
I prepared a proposal with a guy from Luxembourg, and they treat it before the analysis, and I think it doesn't matter at all. So how the hair has been.
Okay.
So they remove all the external stuff, you know.
Okay.
Well, okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Mariana, so it's 10:06. I don't know whether people would like to make a break now and start a little bit later, or we can whatever you want. So the break was planned to be done at 10:15 until 10:30. So whatever you prefer. I don't know.
As you prefer. For me, it's fine anything of the 2 options.
For how long do you think you will explain the? It's quite
the blood.
long, no? Yeah, I think it's long as well. This is why I'm saying that. Yeah.
So if you want, we can stop now for a few minutes, and then we can make talk about blood and the other things that maybe are less long, that are shorter, like the IDs or material, etc. Yeah. So I don't know what would you propose, Maribel? I cannot see the clock.
Okay, Amrit, I think that she wants. Okay. Well, maybe we can make a break now and come back at 10:30. Yeah,
10:30.
Either way. Yeah, fine.
Maybe it's better if we do a 15 minutes break rather than a longer one, to have like just to make sure that we don't pass the time.
So at 10:25.
25.
Okay.
Yeah.
25.
Okay. Yeah. Ciao.
See you.
Okay, so yeah, okay. Let's talk again in a few minutes.